The waiter handed me the bill. $12,000. My boyfriend's face went white. Can your broke self even afford water? His mother sneered. I stayed quiet like I always did. But when the restaurant doors opened and my father walked in, their world was about to shatter forever. Before we dive into this story, if you love watching karma serve cold justice, hit that like button right now and subscribe because you won't believe how this ends. Trust me, you'll want to see every second of what happens next. I should have known the moment Xavier suggested dinner with his family that it was going to be a setup. But I loved him, you know. I really did. So, when he told me his parents wanted to meet me at Lumiere, this fancy French restaurant downtown where they charge you $50 just for sitting down, I said yes. I even bought a new dress. Nothing expensive, just something simple and black from a regular store, but it was nice. Or at least I thought it was. The moment I walked into that restaurant, I felt it. You know that feeling when you're not wanted somewhere? When the air itself seems to push against you. Xavier's mother, Caroline, looked me up and down like I was something she'd found stuck to the bottom of her shoe. She was wearing this cream-colored designer suit dripping in pearls and her face. God! Her face had this permanent look of smelling something bad. So this is her, she said, not to me, but to Xavier like I wasn't even there. Interesting choice of dress, dear. Very affordable looking. Xavier's sister, Brianna, laughed into her champagne glass. She was younger than Xavier, maybe 23, and everything about her screamed trust fund baby. The kind of girl who posts pictures of her brunch on social media and calls it content. She pointed at my purse, just a regular crossbody bag I'd gotten on sale, and whispered something to their father, Gerald, who sat at the head of the table like he owned the place. They all laughed. I sat down next to Xavier, hoping he'd say something. Defend me. Anything. But he just squeezed my hand under the table and gave me this weak smile that said, just get through this. That should have been my first warning sign. So, Aaliyah, Caroline said, pronouncing my name like it tasted wrong in her mouth. Xavier tells us you work at a community center. The way she said community center, you'd think I told her I worked in a store. Yes, I said, keeping my voice steady. I coordinate programs for youth in foster care. Help them with education, life skills, finding resources. How noble, she cut me off. And that pays what? $30,000 a year. Brianna snorted. Mom, be nice. It's probably more like 25. My face burned, but I kept my composure. I make enough to live comfortably and do work that matters to me. Work that matters, Gerald repeated, finally speaking. His voice was deep and cold. That's beautiful, really, but it doesn't pay bills, does it? Xavier is accustomed to a certain lifestyle. His trust fund alone generates more in a month than you'll make all year. Xavier shifted uncomfortably beside me but said nothing. Nothing. The interrogation continued through appetizers. Where did I grow up? I told them the truth. Foster care. Moved around a lot. Different homes in different cities. Caroline's eyes lit up like she just won the lottery of reasons to hate me. Brianna actually pulled out her phone and started typing, probably texting her friends about Xavier's charity case girlfriend. No family at all? Caroline asked, and I could hear the satisfaction in her voice. How tragic. Family is everything, you know. Legacy, breeding, connection. These are the things that define us. I had people who cared for me, I said quietly. And I learned to care for myself. Clearly, Brianna muttered, eyeing my dress again. The main course arrived, and with it Caroline turned her attention to what she really wanted to talk about: money. She started discussing Xavier's inheritance, their family investments, their properties in 3 different states. Every word was designed to remind me that I didn't belong, that I was from a different world, a lesser world. Then Gerald leaned forward, his eyes hard on mine. Let me be direct, Aaliyah. Our family has worked very hard to build what we have. We're protective of it, of Xavier. Can you understand that? Of course, I said. Good. Then you can understand why we might be concerned about someone who comes from nothing. suddenly being very interested in our son. The word nothing hung in the air like poison. I love Xavier, I said, looking at my boyfriend, willing him to look back at me, to see me. I don't care about his money. I didn't even know about his family's wealth when we met. How convenient, Caroline said with a smile that wasn't a smile at all. The gold digger's anthem. That's when it happened. Caroline reached for her wine glass, and I swear to you, I saw it in her eyes a split second before she did it. She accidentally knocked it over, sending red wine cascading across the white tablecloth and directly onto my dress. The only nice thing I was wearing. Oh my, she gasped, but her eyes were gleaming. How clumsy of me. That dress is ruined, I'm afraid. But don't worry, dear. She turned to Brianna. Bri, darling, don't you have some coupons for that discount store? What's it called? Target. Brianna pulled out her phone again. I think I can find something on clearance for her, Mom, if we're lucky. They were laughing, all of them except Xavier, who just sat there staring at his plate like it held the answers to the universe. I excused myself to the bathroom, my dress stained, my eyes burning with tears I refused to let fall. In that bathroom, staring at myself in the mirror, I almost called my father. Almost. But I'd made him a promise 5 years ago when we reunited that I wanted to live a normal life, meet real people, find real love. I wanted to know if someone could love me for me, not for what my last name could give them. So, I took a breath, cleaned up as best I could, and went back to that table. The energy had shifted when I returned. Xavier wouldn't meet my eyes. Gerald was smiling. Caroline looked like a cat who just cornered a mouse. My eyes. Gerald was smiling. Caroline looked like a cat who just cornered a mouse. And Brianna was still on her phone, probably documenting every moment of my humiliation for her social media followers. Feeling better? Carolyn asked sweetly. You were gone so long, we were worried you'd snuck out the back, though I suppose you couldn't leave without paying, could you? Oh, wait. That's when Carolyn really went for the kill. She started talking about my time in foster care, asking if my real parents just didn't want me, suggesting that maybe there was something wrong with me, something that made me unwanted. Every word was a knife, carefully placed, designed to cut deep. My hands shook under the table, but I kept my face neutral. I'd survived worse than this. Foster care teaches you resilience. It teaches you that some people will try to break you just because they can. Then the waiter appeared with the bill. $12,000 for one dinner. I watched him place it in the center of the table, watched Gerald push it towards Xavier with a knowing smile. Your tree tonight, son, Gerald said. Show your girlfriend how a real man handles himself. Xavier opened the bill folder and I saw his face go pale. He patted his pockets, checked his wallet, and I knew immediately what had happened. He'd left his main credit card at home, the one connected to his trust fund. All he had was a regular card with maybe a $3,000 limit. I can't, Xavier stammered, and I watched him die a little inside. Carolyn turned to me with mock sweetness. Aaliyah, dear, perhaps you could contribute. You did eat quite a bit of that steak. The table went silent. Brianna was openly grinning now, her phone pointed in my direction. Recording. She probably has like $20 total, Brianna said, not even trying to whisper. Xavier, my boyfriend, the man who told me he loved me just that morning, turned to me with frustration in his eyes. This is why I told you this dinner might be too much for you. You should have said something. I stared at him. He was actually blaming me for his family's cruelty, for his own failure to defend me, for existing in a space his family deemed too expensive for someone like me. I can pay the bill, I said quietly. The entire table erupted in laughter, not polite chuckles, but full mocking laughter that made other diners turn and stare. Sweetheart, Carolyn said, wiping tears from her eyes. This bill is more than you make in 6 months. Please stop embarrassing yourself. Gerald shook his head. This is embarrassing for Xavier, for our whole family. Son, I think it's time you reconsidered this relationship. Brianna was still recording, probably already planning the caption. My brother's broke girlfriend thinks she can afford a $12,000 dinner. Xavier didn't stop them. He just sat there looking away from me, looking at anything but me. Other people in the restaurant were watching now. I could feel their stares, hear their whispers, the poor black girl who'd gotten above her station. The gold digger getting what she deserved, the nobody who tried to climb too high. I pulled out my phone calmly, deliberately. I found my father's number, the one I'd only called maybe a dozen times in 5 years because I wanted to do this on my own. I wanted to prove I could make it without his name, without his money, without his protection. I hit call. Dad, I said quietly. Could you come inside now? The table went silent for a beat, then erupted again in even louder laughter. Is your daddy going to save you? Caroline managed between giggles. Is he going to pay with food stamps? Gerald was slapping the table. This is priceless. Xavier, your girlfriend is calling her pretend rich daddy. Even Xavier cracked a smile at that, though it looked painful on his face. I set my phone down on the table. Yes, I said simply. He is. Brianna was recording everything, narrating for her followers. You guys, this is insane. She actually thinks. The restaurant doors opened. My father doesn't enter rooms. He commands them. 6 feet 3 inches, dressed in a charcoal suit that cost more than most people's cars. Kingston Cole walked into Lumiere like he owned it because, well, he did. Behind him came 2 of his assistants, both carrying tablets, both moving with the precision of people who manage billions of dollars. I watched Gerald's face drain of color. Actually watched the blood leave his face as recognition hit him. That's Kingston Cole, Gerald whispered. Caroline's wine glass slipped from her hand, shattering on the floor. Brianna's phone dropped onto the table with a clatter. My father walked straight to me, ignoring everyone else at the table. He leaned down, kissed my forehead, and said in that warm voice I'd come to love. Princess, are these people bothering you? The silence in that restaurant was deafening. Hi, Dad, I said, standing up to hug him. Just having dinner with Xavier's family. Kingston looked at Xavier, then at his family, then back at me. I saw him take in my wine-stained dress, my red eyes, the way I was holding myself together by threads. I see, he said quietly. And there was ice in those 2 words. Gerald was standing now, stammering, trying to form words. Mr. Cole, sir, we didn't. This is an honor. Sit down, Gerald, my father said. And Gerald sat like a puppet whose strings had been cut. Kingston turned to the whole table. I don't believe we've been properly introduced. I'm Kingston Cole, Aaliyah's father. But she said she grew up in foster care, Carolyn said weakly. She did, my father confirmed. Her mother, the love of my life, died giving birth to Aaliyah. I was building my company, working 100-hour weeks, traveling constantly. I made the hardest decision of my life. I put her in foster care temporarily, knowing she'd be safe while I built something that could give her the world. I visited when I could. I sent money, gifts, everything. But I wasn't there the way a father should be. He sat down next to me, taking my hand. When Aaliyah turned 18, I found her, told her everything, told her about the inheritance, the company, the properties, all of it. And you know what she said? No one answered. They couldn't. They were frozen. She said she wanted to live a normal life first. She wanted to work, to meet people who didn't know who she was, to find out what real relationships felt like. She wanted to earn her own way before she took on the responsibility of our family's legacy. I've never been more proud of her than I was in that moment. Brianna had gone completely pale. Caroline looked like she might faint. Xavier was staring at me like he'd never seen me before. The community center where Aaliyah works, my father continued. I own the building. I donate anonymously to fund it. I watch my daughter help children who grew up like she did, and I am amazed by her every single day. Gerald tried to speak. Mr. Cole, if you had known, you would have treated her differently. Kingston's voice could have frozen fire. So, you judge people by their bank accounts, by what they can offer you. He gestured to one of his assistants who pulled up something on a tablet. Gerald, you work at Henderson Financial, correct? Middle management, division manager. Yes, sir. Gerald croaked. I own Henderson Financial. Bought it 3 years ago. Been meaning to restructure management. Seems like a good time. Gerald's face went from white to green. My father turned to Brianna. And you're an influencer, I understand. Sponsored by several brands. I noticed you were recording my daughter's humiliation. Planning to post that, were you? Brianna was crying now, shaking her head frantically, deleting the video with trembling fingers. My legal team has already retrieved it from your cloud storage, Kingston said calmly. Harassment, attempted defamation, invasion of privacy. We have quite a case building. Then he looked at Carolyn and his voice got even colder. You poured wine on my daughter's dress. You called her a gold digger. You mocked her for growing up without parents, for not having family. Caroline tried to speak, but nothing came out. The interesting thing about calling someone a gold digger, my father said, is that you're assuming they need your gold. Aaliyah's inheritance, when she decides to accept it, will be worth more than $200 billion. Your family's entire net worth wouldn't cover the interest that generates in a month. He stood up, pulling out his wallet and handing a black card to the waiter who'd been standing frozen nearby. I'll take the bill and add a $10,000 tip for your trouble tonight. Then he turned to me. Ready to go, princess? I stood up, but Xavier grabbed my arm. Aaliyah, wait. I didn't know. If I had known. I looked at him. Really? Looked at him. You had 100 chances to defend me tonight, Xavier. 100 chances to tell your family to stop. You didn't need to know who my father was. You just needed to love me. And you didn't. I removed his hand from my arm. You chose them over me every single time. That tells me everything I need to know. I walked out of that restaurant with my father and I didn't look back. You want to know what happened after? Gerald was demoted within a week, transferred to a branch office in a city where nobody knew his name. Carolyn became a pariah in her social circle once word got out about what she'd done. Turns out insulting Kingston Cole's daughter is a good way to lose every friend you have. Brianna lost every single sponsorship within days. The brands didn't want to be associated with someone who mocked people for being poor. And Xavier, he called me 273 times. I know because I counted before I blocked him. He sent flowers, letters, showed up at the community center. He said he was sorry, that he loved me, that he'd stand up to his family next time. But there wouldn't be a next time. I kept working at the community center. I still do. I used my father's resources quietly and privately to help foster kids get into college, to fund programs that gave me hope when I had none. I found someone eventually. Someone who loved me when he thought I was just a community center worker with nothing but dreams. Someone who defended me without thinking twice. My father is proud of me. He tells me that all the time. He says the money will be there when I'm ready. But what matters more is the person I've become. I learned something important that night at Lumiere. People will judge you by what they can see. Your clothes, your job, your background. But the quietest person in the room might be the most powerful. The person you mock might be the one who holds your future in their hands. Carolyn, Gerald, Brianna, Xavier, they all learned that lesson the hard way. Me. I already knew it. I'd been learning it my whole life. If this story gave you chills, smash that like button and share it with someone who needs to hear this. Drop a comment telling me, would you have stayed as calm as Aaliyah, or would you have spoken up sooner? Subscribe for more stories where karma serves the ultimate justice. Remember, never judge someone by their appearance. You never know who you're really dealing with. See you in the next.